Señoras y señores, le damos la bienvenida a nuestra moderadora del próximo panel, Patricia Janiot.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome senior anchor, CNN en Español, United States, Patricia Hanoi.
Buenos días a todos. Creo que hoy vamos a tener un panel muy interesante con los presidentes de importantes empresas multinacionales que nos ayudarán a introducir los temas más importantes del panel. Pero antes de presentar a mi primer invitado, esto lo voy a hacer en dos idiomas, quisiera pues darle la bienvenida a N.Liivers. Él es el presidente y el chairman de Dow Chemical Company. Vamos a hacer una conversación pequeña con él que creo que nos va a ayudar a presentar los temas más importantes de esta sesión. Así que, good morning, everybody. We have a wonderful panel of CEOs that will help start introducing our main discussions today. So before we dive into those details, I would like to introduce N.Liivers. He's the chairman and CEO of Dow Chemical. And I think thank you, Andrew. I think our conversation will help introduce some of the important themes of today, of this forum. Andrew, to set up the tone and just for our international audience, I would like you to share with us what are your Dow Chemical current projects in Argentina and what the future investments do you think will be? Let me just do this in Spanish and I'll let you answer. Le estoy preguntando cuáles son los proyectos actuales de Dow Chemical en Argentina y cuáles serían las inversiones futuras para empezar y que todos conozcamos qué hacen nuestros presidentes.
Thank you, Patricia. It's an honor to represent our company. It's an honor to be in Buenos Aires in Argentina, this great country. I'm from Australia, which is another Southern Hemisphere country, so I have a lot of kinship with your country, especially in rugby. But I would like to answer your question by saying Dow's been Argentina's first friend for 60 years. We've been here 60 years. Mm-hmm. Our Argentines populate the world, and lately we've been bringing them home because of the new promise here. We have over $2 billion of investment in the last 15 years. We're the largest petrochemical plastics company in Argentina and 3,800 employees. We are very proud of the ability for us to make money here and invest further, but lately we have upped that investment because of what we've seen as pro-business policies from the President and this new administration. We have been part of the unconventional shale gas development with YPF, our partner. Mm-hmm. We announced $350 million before, a year or two ago, in El Argentino, the unconventional gas fields. On the day of the election, soon thereafter, in the first investment announced under the new administration, we increased that together by $500 million. And since then, our company has found a $180 million renewable energy wind project with IMPAV in Patagonia. We're going to participate in wind turbines and wind energy in this country, which desperately needs to diversify its energy source. So we've increased it substantially. We are here. I come to countries around the world, Dow's in 162, normally when there's issues and crises. This is the first time I've come to Argentina where my team is presenting me new investment opportunities.
Wonderful.
And we're seriously looking at a large investment in Bahia Blanca beyond what we currently have. We're very excited by the opportunity that this new gas fields are presenting us.
What elements of Argentina's economic plans do you find particularly attractive?
I think to answer that question, as we go around countries, all the CEOs that you'll talk to that are global, we normally put countries into two categories: red carpet countries and red tape countries. This has been a red tape country for so long that it's almost unimaginable to now see the beginning of a red carpet, which is what we're all here for. The reason for that is most governments around the world have no answer to structural and fiscal reform anymore. It's unpopular. And what this government is doing is the beginning of fiscal and structural reform. Monetary policy is no out for growth. to get prolonged growth, to get investment to come to you, FDI, we need as much certainty as we can, and we need government persistence on structural reform. So pick your favorite ones: education, trade, tax, energy policy. These are all key. Many others that are, at the beginning unpopular, especially if you've been addicted to government handouts, especially when you've had a lack of transparency, especially when the standards have been inconsistent. The beginnings of consistency have to be followed by persistency. Because, as the President said in his opening remarks, you're not going to get there overnight. And if you'll allow me to transform something, at least in the corporate world and I think for countries, you need 3 phases. The 3 phases are not easy, but they all, one precedes the other and are preconditions to get to where he wants to go to for this great country. The first phase is to get fit. Fix yourself. Fix the inadequacies, fix the lack of transparency, fix the corruption, fix the bad policies, fix the subsidies. This is hard, very hard. For populations, they look at that and say, what's it in it for me? You've got to give them a metric that says the second phase. I'm going to change the rules. And the rules are pro-growth. And they're all in those pillars I talked about. I'm going to change the education system to give you the skills you need, not for today, but for tomorrow. I'm going to give you an energy policy that is across the board: efficiency, renewables, climate control, unconventional, conventional, nuclear. And then I'm going to give you lots of these policies and give you the rules of investment. And the third, where you can win. And by God, this country can win. Argentina is set up to win if you change the game. Think of the sectors like advanced manufacturing, advanced agribusiness, infrastructure that need technologies of tomorrow. Our company's involved in all of those. Those sectors, if you change the game and invest in your human capital on top of the natural resources you have here, this country will be one of the very few countries at the beginning of this century to change the game. There aren't a lot of them out there. Here's the good news: you don't have much competition. So if you get after the fix part, the get fit part, you'll move to change the rules maybe in a year or maybe in a presidential term, and then you can change the game. Then you have sustained growth for decades.
All those very positive messages. It started to sound like Donald Trump. Let me tell you.
No, I don't think so. I'm going to say,
Argentina is here to win.
Are you Megyn Kelly?
No. I don't want to get into that. Andrew, you detailed all the major sectors where Argentina has great potential. But based on the reforms that President Macri has already started, how those reforms impact your company, your investment?
Well, the very first one, I mentioned already this large investment we're contemplating. Energy policy is a big key one there. Now, just to give you the context of that, our company's investing $20 billion in Saudi Arabia right now, starting up a huge facility there. We're investing $6 billion on the U.S. Gulf Coast against the unconventional gas resources here. You have the second largest unconventional gas resources in the world. Okay? You need to develop them. You need to develop them economically. There's a chance you can do that. If you have consistency of energy policy here, where we can get predictability on gas pricing, we can understand the value add versus the exporting of the gas, we can understand how the gas fits into your, because you import gas during your winter months here, and you have to stop that. And so what you fundamentally have to do is provide me an energy policy that I can be counting on so we can put billions of dollars at work like I just talked about in these other countries. So that's a big area for us. I think every country needs to approach energy, the energy matrix, with a view to conservation efficiency, with a view to the right infrastructure, and the view to developing its resources that it has. Trade, double down on Mercosur. You're 44, 45 million people. You're not big enough. You need to be bigger. You can have an export base here based on competitiveness if you have reform in the energy area, but also in the labor area. Get the union movement to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Reform your labor rules. Start to migrate out of sectors that you can't win in. Sectors that are labor intensive, you've long gone. You don't want to be the #1 producer of labor-intensive industries. Your living standard will go down. It's a race to the bottom. A race to the top is start to inventory sectors that have high-value products and high-value skills. So education is another area that the government needs to work on. But trade, tax reform, energy policy reform, education reform, if you can get those in the first term, they would have lifted Herculean efforts to get investment here. You put all that into a one-stop shop, red carpet, and you start marketing yourselves that you've done that and you're consistent, you will get investment.
Wonderful. And how significant in your investment is the local companies, so they can add value to the chain value? I mean, they can add to the chain value. Is that part of your strategic plan in Argentina?
Yeah, so a company like ours, which is $60 billion in size, we have SMEs supplying us and SMEs that we sell to. We're an ecosystem. You know, to state the obvious, you have to be small to become big. So we were small once. So we understand small. We understand community. We're a company of communities and a community company. In Bahia Blanca, we belong to the community. Our employees work there, live there. We help the community with philanthropy. We provide an ecosystem so the lifestyle of everyone can be lifted. And small companies, privately owned family companies, okay, do business with us because we've never lost the ability to be local. You know, you have to operate companies today of our size with a microscope and a telescope. The microscope is local. Everything is there in that ecosystem. The telescope is the horizon. You have to detail where you're going. And inclusive capitalism is a term I want you all to learn. Inclusive capitalism means that everyone benefits from capitalism, not just one group. That not just the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That is a paradigm that is creating anarchy all over the world. You talked about Donald Trump. Why is he getting a chord of responsiveness? Because people feel left out of economic growth. And jobless growth has become a normal. We have to fix that. And small companies are a big part of fixing it. In the United States, we're at the slowest rate of small business formation since 1958. That's a statistic that should be burned in your brain. So you start to understand why the failure is starting to occur at the local level. So what you've got to do is have multiple stakeholder involvement in capitalism, which means the small, which means the community, which means all the people in your ecosystem have to benefit from you benefiting. And that's the win-win that I think this country is trying to provide.
Very, very interesting. I think you have provided us with a framework to continue our discussion, so please join me in welcoming the rest of our guests in this very interesting panel. And they are Bruno Di Leo from IBM,